Investigators say Eric Ashley, Arkia Berry, and her 5-year-old son Landon Brooks were fatally shot yesterday evening around 5:30.
In the final seconds of her life, as bullets tore through her car, 28-year-old Arkia Berry didn't call for help or text her family goodbye, but instead typed out a name and hit send, Jocko. Her 5-year-old son Landon sat strapped in his booster seat behind her, and within moments, both of them would be dead alongside her boyfriend Eric Ashley.
First responders confirmed they died at the scene. Officers say the driver of the car crashed into someone's yard following the shooting.
That single text message, sent at 5:09 in the afternoon on July 13, 2024, would become the key piece of evidence in a triple homicide that investigators believe was triggered by a $2,000 debt. But before we get to how money allegedly led to this massacre in Birmingham, Alabama, let me take you back to where Arkia's story began and show you the tragic pattern that had already marked her family long before that fatal afternoon. Born on September 9, 1995, Arkia Kia Berry grew up in Center Point, a suburb northeast of Birmingham, where she attended Parker High School and graduated around 2013 before pursuing her passion for beauty through cosmetology school. She built her reputation as a talented hairstylist, connecting with clients through her Instagram account, which had over 3,400 followers. At the same time, her cousin Anaya Berry later described their relationship as two peas in a pod, explaining that Arkia poured everything into her work and family. The center of Arkia's world arrived on March 3, 2019, when she gave birth to her son, Landon Brooks. However, tragedy struck their family early when on September 25, 2020, Landon was just 18 months old and his father, Ladarius Jameel Brooks, was found shot to death inside his apartment at Watertown Lodge Apartments in Birmingham's Roebuck neighborhood. Investigators discovered his body partially burned in what they believed was an intentional fire meant to cover up the crime. Yet despite the investigation, no arrests were ever made, leaving the case unsolved and Landon without a father. From that point forward, Arkia raised her son alone while building her hairstyling business and ensuring he had everything he needed. And by 2024, Landon had grown into a cheerful 5-year-old who loved playing youth football and couldn't stop talking about starting kindergarten that fall. His coach, Keldrick Marsh, remembered spending time with him just hours before his death, watching him laugh and play with his teammates. Arkia had also found love again with Eric Ashley Jr., a 28-year-old from Hoover, Alabama, who maintained a quiet life with no criminal history and stepped into the role of father figure for Landon. The three of them were building what looked like a stable, happy life together, far removed from the violence that had already taken Landon's biological father. What they didn't know was that danger was already circling, as phone records would later show Eric had been in regular contact with a man named Jacorian Deshaun McGregor, someone he knew well enough to save in his phone under two different nicknames, Jack and Jocko. Text messages exchanged between them in the hours leading up to July 13, 2024, indicated they were planning to meet, though the messages never specified exactly when or where. While Eric had even searched for McGregor's Facebook profile in the days before, suggesting he was preparing for some kind of encounter. The afternoon of July 13, 2024 started like any other summer day in Birmingham. But at 5:07, surveillance cameras positioned around the Echo Highlands neighborhood captured something unusual, a lime green Kia Soul entering the residential area. Echo Highlands is the kind of neighborhood where children ride bikes in the street and neighbors know each other by name, with limited entry and exit points that made it easy for cameras to track vehicle movements. And 1 minute after the Kia entered, at 5:08, Arkia's blue Nissan Maxima followed behind. At exactly 5:08, Eric placed a call to the number saved in his phone as Jocko as their Nissan rolled into the neighborhood, while cell tower data would later confirm both phones were pinging off the same tower at that exact moment, placing them in the immediate vicinity of each other. Whatever meeting Eric and McGregor had planned was about to happen, but instead of a conversation, what came next was violence. At 5:09 in the afternoon, gunfire erupted near the entrance to Echo Highlands Park on Indian Summer Drive in a rapid and relentless attack that left no room for escape or survival.
Officers say the driver of the car crashed into someone's yard following the shooting.
Investigators would later recover between 20 and 30 shell casings scattered across the roadway, grass, and a nearby yard, indicating someone had unleashed a barrage of bullets from a semi-automatic weapon, while the Nissan's passenger side was riddled with holes. Eric, who had been sitting in the front passenger seat, took the brunt of the initial assault, yet somehow, even as bullets ripped through the vehicle around him, he managed to shift into the driver's seat and attempted to get them away from the attack before the car lurched forward, jumped a curb, and crashed violently into someone's front yard. In those final chaotic seconds, while her boyfriend tried desperately to save them and her son sat terrified in the back seat, Arkia Berry pulled out her phone and typed one last message: Jocko. She hit send at 5:09 and then either dropped the phone or could no longer hold on to it, leaving behind what investigators would later interpret as her dying attempt to identify her killer, a final act of courage meant to ensure whoever did this wouldn't escape justice. By 5:10, surveillance cameras captured the lime green Kia Soul fleeing the scene at high speed, racing away from Echo Highlands while no other vehicles left the neighborhood afterward, and at that same moment, the Nissan's automatic crash detection system dialed 911, alerting emergency services that something had gone terribly wrong.
Officers found them in a crashed car on Indian Summer Drive. That's right near the Echo Highlands neighborhood.
When first responders arrived at the scene, they found Arkia slumped across the center console, her body positioned in a way that suggested she had been trying to reach for her son in the back seat or shield him from the gunfire during those final moments. But her efforts had been in vain, as Landon Brooks was still strapped into his booster seat on the driver's side rear, his small body riddled with bullets despite having just celebrated his 5th birthday 4 months earlier and being scheduled to start kindergarten in just a few weeks. Instead, he became one of Birmingham's 75th, 76th, and 77th homicide victims of 2024, while Eric Ashley Jr. was found slumped in the front passenger area, having died while attempting to drive them to safety, and all three were pronounced dead at the scene. One detail at the crime scene immediately told investigators something crucial about the nature of the attack, as money was found scattered around the vehicle. The cash that had apparently been in the car but was left behind by whoever committed the shooting. The presence of that money meant robbery wasn't the motive, but rather the attack was personal and targeted, and according to some unverified reports, allegedly connected to a missing $2,000 that may have involved a debt McGregor owed, possibly tied to narcotics.
We've deployed all of our detectives in the Birmingham Police Department to focus on these two particular cases to bring justice. And for those who are responsible for those heinous crimes, I want you to know that we will be coming for you with full force.
The Birmingham Police Department immediately launched a major investigation, bringing in assistance from the U.S. Marshals Service and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and what they uncovered over the following months was a trail of digital evidence and witness testimony that all pointed toward one person. The lime green Kia Soul that had fled the scene became a crucial piece of the puzzle when the next day, on July 14th, the vehicle was discovered burned in the 9,200 to 9,300 block of 13th Avenue North. Someone had intentionally set it on fire, clearly hoping to destroy any evidence that might link them to the crime, but investigators were able to identify the vehicle through its VIN and license plate by tracking the car's movements through Birmingham's Flock safety camera system. They learned the Kia had been stolen approximately 5 or 6 days before the shooting, though oddly enough, the owner had never reported it stolen, a strange detail that would later become a point of contention during court proceedings. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source when a witness driving a black Mercedes that day came forward to speak with investigators, someone who admitted to being friends with both Eric Ashley and Arkia Berry. Surveillance footage confirmed what the witness told police. The black Mercedes had been following the lime green Kia Soul multiple times throughout July 13th, and when detectives traced the Mercedes through its license plate and sat down with the driver for an interview, they heard something that would blow the case wide open. The lime green Kia Soul had been driven by Jacorian Deshaun McGregor, as the witness personally identified him as the person behind the wheel. But the account became even more damning when the witness told investigators that shortly after the shooting took place, McGregor had confessed to them, saying he had shot the victims, which represented a direct admission of guilt according to what the witness reported to authorities. Jacorian Deshaun McGregor was 25 years old at the time of the shooting, standing 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighing approximately 165 pounds, with a criminal history that included violent offenses. In 2021, he had pleaded guilty to receiving stolen property, a conviction that resulted in a suspended 20-year sentence and probation, while by the summer of 2024, he also had outstanding warrants for failure to appear on first-degree robbery and receiving stolen property charges. The digital forensic evidence investigators gathered revealed McGregor's involvement when detectives analyzed his phone using specialized forensic tools like Cellbrite and discovered that messages from the day of the shooting had been deliberately deleted. Forensic technology allowed investigators to recover fragments of those deleted conversations, revealing something extremely suspicious. Associates had been texting McGregor, sending him messages telling him to lay low, stay out of sight, and stay hidden, raising the obvious question of why someone would need to hide immediately after a triple homicide unless they had something to do with it. The evidence continued mounting when police executed a search warrant on McGregor's residence and discovered guns and drugs inside, which, while not directly linked to the homicide itself in official court testimony, suggested McGregor was involved in criminal activity that could potentially explain the motive behind the shooting. Combined with the alleged $2,000 debt that some sources claim was tied to narcotics deals, the picture started coming together of a meeting that went fatally wrong over money. Let me circle back to what I mentioned at the beginning about that $2,000, as some sources have suggested that Eric Ashley withdrew $2,000 from his bank account days before the shooting, money that vanished under circumstances tied to speculation that McGregor owed this amount, possibly from a drug deal that had gone bad. Text messages between Eric and McGregor in the hours before the shooting allegedly included tense language like "you're running out of time" and references to settling up or making a drop. Although this claim has yet to be confirmed by the police, what investigators could confirm beyond any doubt was the planned meeting at the same location. For 7 long months, the investigation continued as detectives worked around the clock, following every lead and analyzing every piece of evidence they could find, while the Birmingham community remained devastated by the senseless violence. Vigils were organized to honor Landon's memory, with dozens of people gathering to mourn the loss of an innocent child caught in the crossfire of adult conflicts.
Comfort zone. They time to express themselves. Some kids don't know how to express themselves to their parents. And we have to step up and...
Finally, on February 24, 2025, 7 months after the shooting tore apart 3 families, the Birmingham Police Department's crime reduction team made their move. Working alongside the U.S. Marshals Service Gulf Coast Regional Fugitive Task Force and officers from the Alabama Bureau of Pardons and Paroles, they arrested Jacorian Deshaun McGregor in a 900 block of Vondale Lane in Birmingham, where the arrest happened without incident, and McGregor was booked into Jefferson County Jail 2 days later on February 26th. McGregor was charged with capital murder for causing the deaths of 2 or more people during the same criminal episode, a charge that, under Alabama law, carries either the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole. Prosecutors also charged him with the 2 outstanding failure to appear warrants related to his previous robbery and stolen property cases. On April 17, 2025, the first major court proceeding took place when a preliminary hearing was held in Jefferson County District Court with Judge William Bell presiding, marking the first time the public got to hear detailed testimony about the evidence prosecutors had compiled against McGregor. Deputy District Attorney Charissa Henricks represented the prosecution, while defense attorney John Robbins stood up for McGregor, and the prosecution called only one witness to testify: Birmingham Police Department homicide detective Jarvelius Tolliver, who methodically walked the court through every piece of evidence investigators had gathered over the previous 10 months. Detective Tolliver laid out the case piece by piece, presenting the phone records showing Eric Ashley calling the numbers saved as Jaco at the exact moment they entered the Echo Highlands neighborhood, the cell tower pings that placed both McGregor's and Ashley's phones in the same location at the time of the shooting, and the surveillance footage capturing the lime green Kia Soul's movements before and after the attack. He also detailed the witness who identified McGregor as the driver of that Kia and claimed he confessed to committing the shooting, the deleted text messages found on McGregor's phone advising him to hide, and, of course, Arkia Berry's final text message to her friend, Jaco. But John Robbins, representing McGregor, pushed back hard against the prosecution's narrative by arguing forcefully that the evidence was largely circumstantial in nature and lacked the kind of direct physical proof needed to definitively place his client at the scene of the murder. Robbins pointed out that there was no video footage showing the actual shooting taking place, no fingerprints recovered from inside the Kia Soul, no DNA evidence connecting McGregor to the vehicle, and none of the shell casings found at the scene had been directly linked to any weapon recovered from McGregor's possession. He highlighted the suspicious fact that the Kia's owner had never reported the vehicle stolen, calling that detail unusual and potentially problematic for the prosecution's entire theory, while challenging the reliability of cell phone ping data and emphasizing that the witness's claim about McGregor's confession was hearsay testimony filtered through Detective Tolliver rather than presented directly to the court. Robbins told Judge Bell the case was somewhat suspect and based upon circumstantial evidence, and filed a motion asking the judge to dismiss all charges against his client. But Judge Bell reviewed the evidence presented by the prosecution and ruled that they had met the legal standard for a preliminary hearing. He found sufficient probable cause to believe McGregor had committed the crimes and bound the case over to a grand jury for further review. Here's where the timeline of justice starts breaking down frustratingly, as today, January 9th, 2026, almost 2 full years after the shooting that killed Arkia, Landon, and Eric, and nearly a year since McGregor's arrest, there has been no grand jury indictment issued in the case and no trial scheduled. Jacorian Deshaun McGregor remains locked up in Jefferson County Jail in pre-trial detention status, held without bond and with no court dates currently on his docket, while the case appears stuck in a frustrating state of legal limbo.
Capital murder cases in Alabama move notoriously slowly through the court system for several important reasons, as grand juries must review massive amounts of evidence before deciding whether to formally indict someone. And in cases where prosecutors are potentially seeking the death penalty, every single piece of evidence has to be meticulously prepared and documented. Jefferson County's court system is also dealing with significant case backlogs that have piled up over recent years, with records showing that in 2025 alone, Jefferson County processed over 1,200 felony cases, and capital cases require specialized handling that takes them out of the normal rotation. Death-qualified juries need to be carefully assembled from citizens willing to consider imposing the death penalty. Expert witnesses need to be retained and prepared for testimony, and the discovery process in capital cases can drag on for months or even years as both sides exchange evidence and build their strategies. But let's not lose sight of what really matters here, because beyond all the legal technicalities and procedural delays, we're talking about 3 human beings whose lives were violently stolen from them and from their families. And that's the part of this case that statistics, court filings, and timelines can never fully capture. Because Arkia Berry wasn't just a name in a police report. She was a mother who worked long hours on her feet, braiding hair and building a future for her son. Landon Brooks wasn't just a child victim. He was a 5-year-old boy who should have been worrying about learning his ABCs, not sitting in the backseat of a car moments away from death. And Eric Ashley wasn't collateral damage. He was a man who in his final moments tried to move into the driver's seat and get the people he loved out of danger. Do you think the text message Arkia sent will be enough to send McGregor to jail for good? Let me know what you think in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.